Okay, so to set up your machine to sew straight stitches, first of all you need to make sure the stitch selector at the top is against the bottom set of stitches. This will either give you a straight stitch or a zigzag. The next dial here, make sure this top one is at 0 and this one is directly upright at 12 o'clock. As soon as you start to give this a number, the needle will swing from side to side and give you a zigzag stitch. The bigger the number, the longer the zigzag stitch will be. This one here is about needle position. So if you click it to the left, the needle will move to the left. Click it to the right, the needle will move to the right, which is indicated in this diagram here. This dial needs to be on 0 when you're doing straight stitch. This is for buttonholes and you'll learn about that later. This one here is your stitch length. 2.5 to 3 is the average stitch length. On this machine, when you want to back tack, you lift this up. This is the symbol for back tacking. And again, 0 is a very short stitch, 5 is a long stitch, and you can see that's indicated here. On some sewing machines, the back tack button will be here. This bottom dial, you want it to go towards the green stitches. So if you look at the stitch selector, there are green stitches and there are red stitches. So it's green and red. The red are triple stitches and the green are your single everyday stitches. So make sure it's towards the green. Last thing, this one here. You want it to point towards the stitches. If it's pointing towards this one, that means these feed dogs will drop inside the machine and it will not take your fabric through and help you to sew. So I want you to do some straight lines. You'll need 2 pieces of fabric because a sewing machine is designed to sew 2 pieces of fabric together. A straight stitch is actually called a lock stitch, and the stitches lock in between the 2 pieces of fabric like that. So get 2 squares of fabric, make sure they've got some nice straight edges and are about the same size. Your machine's all threaded, you've gone through all of that. Put the fabric underneath the presser foot so that when you start sewing, you're quite near the edge of the fabric. Do a couple of stitches. Back tack for 2 stitches or 3 stitches, but not lots. Sew yourself a nice straight line. Notice that the fabric is going through not sewn, my hands are just there to guide it. When you get to the end, back tack for a couple of stitches and that will anchor everything into place. Lift the presser foot up, the needle's in the fabric, turn the balance wheel towards you and pull the threads towards the back and snip the threads. Snip them quite close to the stitching. It's good to do this as you're going along and get into a habit of doing that now for when you're making garments. A bit of a jump there. So for the next line, I want you to see if you can stay straight. So use the edge of the presser foot, line that up with the previous stitching, threads towards the back, 2 stitches, back tack for 2 or 3 stitches, and then keep an eye on the edge of the presser foot to make sure it's on that stitch line. Keep your fingers well away from the needle. Don't push or pull the fabric. And when you get to the end, back tack for 2 or 3 stitches. Same again, lift the presser foot, fabric towards the back of the machine. There is a cutter here as well, but you probably need to use the scissors to get in close. So I want you to continue across the fabric so that you end up with lots and lots of straight and as parallel lines as you can get.